During Operation Epic Fury, CVN-72, USS Abraham Lincoln, flew 120 combat sorties per day. That rate burns through roughly 1 million gallons of JP-5 jet fuel every week. The nuclear reactor powers the ship. It does not power the aircraft. And without the aircraft, a carrier is not a carrier. So every 3 to 4 days, Abraham Lincoln had to slow down, pull alongside an unarmed oiler crewed by merchant mariners, connect a 7-inch fuel hose, and pump 1.2 million gallons of jet fuel at 13 knots on a straight course for 3 to 4 hours. You have seen this before. Every defense channel has shown you the same thing. The carrier refueling looks vulnerable, but it is actually protected by 5 layers of Aegis, fighters, and Phalanx, a fortress. They are correct, but they answered the wrong question. What if Iran did not aim at the carrier? What if they aimed at the other ship? The one with no missiles, no radar, no Aegis, crewed by 100 merchant mariners. The one carrying 1.2 million gallons of explosive jet fuel that CVN-72 cannot fly without. Navy Decoded is running that scenario, and it starts with a trade-off the Navy made 70 years ago. Subscribe. Let us start with the engineering, and the trade-off that made all of this inevitable. The nuclear reactor on CVN-72, the A4W pressurized water reactor, runs for 25 years without refueling. 25 years. That is the most impressive propulsion achievement in the history of naval engineering. The carrier itself will never run out of power. But here is the trade-off that reactor created. When the Navy designed the Nimitz class, they made a decision. The reactor would power the ship. Propulsion, catapults, electrical systems, freshwater distillation, everything the hull needs to function. But the aircraft, the entire reason the carrier exists, those run on something else entirely. JP-5, jet fuel, kerosene, a liquid you burn and cannot replace with nuclear energy. The reactor runs for 25 years. The air wing runs for 3 to 7 days. That gap, between 25 years and 7 days, is the gap that underway replenishment has to fill. The numbers are not complicated, but they are relentless. A Nimitz-class carrier holds approximately 3.5 million gallons of JP-5 in its aviation fuel tanks. During sustained combat operations, 120 sorties per day, the air wing consumes between 1 and 2 million gallons per week. At that rate, the tanks empty in roughly 3 to 7 days, depending on the intensity of the flight schedule. When the tanks approach their minimum, a replenishment oiler, in this case USNS Henry J. Kaiser, pulls alongside CVN-72. A 7-inch fuel hose is rigged across the gap between the two ships, and over the next 3 to 4 hours, at a pump rate of approximately 540,000 gallons per hour, the oiler transfers roughly 1.2 million gallons of JP-5 into the carrier's fuel system. This happens every 3 to 4 days during high-tempo operations. It is not optional. It is not a convenience. It is a physics constraint that no amount of engineering has been able to eliminate. The carrier does not choose to unrep. The fuel clock decides for it. So CVN-72 cannot avoid this moment. Every 3 to 4 days, it must slow down, hold a straight course, and connect to another ship. The timeline is fixed by physics. The question is, when that moment comes, what is standing between CVN-72 and everything Iran can throw at it? The answer is more impressive than most people realize, but it has a blind spot that no one talks about. The answer to the first question is impressive. When a carrier enters unlocked at 13 knots on a predictable course, physically tethered to a supply ship by a fuel hose, the carrier strike group does not relax. It does the opposite. The escorts pull in tighter. The formation contracts from its open ocean spread into a dense defensive screen. Unrep is not the moment the CSG is most relaxed. It is the moment the CSG is most concentrated. And the defenses are extraordinary. 300 nautical miles out, an E-2D advanced Hawkeye circles overhead. Its AN/APY-9 radar sweeps the horizon in every direction, continuously, tracking anything that moves. Aircraft, missiles, surface contacts. The Hawkeye does not stop during unrep. It is the eye that never closes. At 130 nautical miles, the outer ring begins. SM-6 missiles on the escort destroyers, guided by NIFCA, the Naval Integrated Fire Control Network, can intercept incoming anti-ship cruise missiles before those missiles even activate their own radar seekers. The threat is destroyed before it sees its target. Closer in, the DDG escort sits in the shotgun position, approximately 3/4 of a mile behind and to the starboard side of the oiler, covering the exact blind spot the oiler creates in the carrier's radar picture. That destroyer carries SM-2 missiles at 90 nautical miles, ESSM at 27 nautical miles with 50 G maneuverability, and RAM, the rolling airframe missile, spinning continuously in flight to scan 360 degrees for infrared signatures. And if something gets past all of that, there is Phalanx, a 20mm Gatling gun firing 4,500 rounds per minute of tungsten penetrators, operating autonomously, requiring no human command. The last wall. Below the surface, MH-60R helicopters drop sonobuoys in an expanding pattern, and somewhere in the water column, a Virginia-class attack submarine shadows the formation, listening. 5 layers. 200 to 300 interceptors loaded and ready across 2 to 3 escort destroyers. The carrier's own weapons not yet counted. This is, by any objective measure, the most heavily defended logistics evolution in the history of warfare. If you stop the analysis here, you would conclude that UNREP is untouchable. And for the carrier, you would be right. But every single one of those systems, every SM-6, every ESSM, every RAM, every Phalanx, is designed to do one thing: protect the warship. Now look at the ship next to it, the one that is actually keeping the warship alive. USNS Henry J. Kaiser is not a warship. It is a fleet replenishment oiler, TAO-187, operated by the Military Sealift Command. Its crew is approximately 100 merchant mariners and a small Navy detachment. Its air defense radar does not exist. Its close-in weapon system, the Navy-designed space for a Phalanx mount on the Kaiser class, was never installed. Its armament consists of 50 caliber machine guns. The destroyer alongside it carries 90 vertical launch cells, an Aegis radar, and 2 Phalanx mounts. The oiler carries 50 caliber machine guns, effective against small boats, but not designed to stop an incoming drone at 100 knots. This is not an oversight. This is a 70-year-old architectural decision. If the Navy armed every oiler to combatant standards, Aegis, VLS, radar, the cost would multiply by 5 to 10 times per hull. The logistics fleet would collapse under its own budget. So the trade-off was made. The oiler relies on the escort for protection. It does not protect itself. That trade-off worked for 7 decades, and then the Houthis demonstrated what happens when it stops working. In 2023 and 2024, Houthi forces in Yemen used low-cost drones and missiles to attack commercial shipping in the Red Sea. Not warships, cargo vessels, tankers. The result? Global shipping routes disrupted, war insurance premiums skyrocketing, vessels rerouting around the Cape of Good Hope. A militia with cheap drones proved a simple principle. You do not need to sink a warship. You just need to make the logistics chain afraid to operate. That was commercial shipping. The question this scenario asks is whether the same concept applies to the Navy's own supply line. The carrier can survive multiple missile hits. The oiler cannot survive one. That is not a flaw in the system. That is the system. So now you know the physics. You know the shield wall. You know where the gap is. The only question left is, what happens when someone finds it? Let us run the scenario, second by second. Second 0. IRGC coastal defense units launch a mixed salvo from mobile transporter erector launchers positioned along the Iranian coastline. 4 Ga-Dare anti-ship cruise missiles and 8 Shahed 136 loitering munitions. 2 types of threat, 2 completely different problems. Second 15. The E-2D Hawkeye, circling at 25,000 feet, detects the 4 Ga-Dare missiles beyond 200 nautical miles. The radar classifies them as hostile. Tracking data flows through NIFCA to the escort destroyer. Second 30. Aegis assigns SM-6 to the 4 Ga-Dare missiles. Intercept occurs beyond 100 nautical miles, well before the Ga-Dare's own active radar seeker would have activated. This is the problem SM-6 was designed to solve. Fast cruise missile, high radar cross-section, predictable trajectory. The math is familiar. The system works. Second 45. All 4 Ga-Dare missiles are destroyed. The sky appears clear, but it is not. 8 Shahed 136 drones are still inbound, and they present a fundamentally different problem. The Shahed flies at approximately 100 knots, slower than most general aviation aircraft. It flies low. Its radar cross-section is small. The Aegis system was optimized for fast cruise missiles with large radar signatures. A slow, low, cheap drone is an entirely different equation. Second 90. The Shahed swarm reaches 40 nautical miles. The DDG's radar begins to resolve the smaller targets. ESSM is assigned. The system engages. 6 of 8 Shaheds are destroyed. Second 120. 2 Shaheds remain, 15 nautical miles from the oiler. Phalanx CIWS activates on the escort destroyer. The distinctive sound as 20mm tungsten rounds shred the airframe of 1 Shahed. Second 135. 1 Shahed remains. It is heading directly for USNS Henry J. Kaiser. The Combat Information Center issues the order: emergency breakaway. On the deck of the carrier, the crew executes a procedure they have drilled hundreds of times. The fuel hose is cut. Automatic valves slam shut to prevent JP-5 from spilling across the deck. Cables are retracted. The two ships, which have been sailing side by side at 13 knots, separated by 120 feet, begin to separate. Within 60 to 90 seconds, the connection is severed. The carrier accelerates from 13 knots to over 30, turning hard to starboard. The oiler turns the opposite direction. The breakaway works. The carrier is free. It can maneuver again. But here is the trade-off no one shows you. USNS Kaiser had transferred approximately 800,000 gallons of the 1.2 million gallons CVN-72 needed. The UNREP was 2/3 complete. The emergency breakaway saved the carrier from the immediate threat. It did not save the carrier from the fuel clock. CVN-72 is now short 400,000 gallons. The last Shahed impacts Kaiser's superstructure. The damage is minor, non-critical. The ship is not sinking. But the captain orders a full damage assessment before any further fuel transfer operations can resume. That assessment takes time, and Kaiser may need to withdraw to a safer area before attempting another UNREP. CVN-72 now has two options: wait for Kaiser to complete its assessment, or withdraw 200 nautical miles to rendezvous with a replacement oiler in a lower threat zone. Either way, the fuel clock is running. 8 drones. Total cost, approximately $160,000. Day 1 through 3. CVN-72 reduces its sortie rate to mission-critical operations only: combat air patrol and anti-submarine warfare. Strike missions stop. The offensive capability of the carrier group drops to a fraction of its combat tempo. Day 4 through 7. JP-5 reserves fall below 50%. Sortie rate decreases by roughly 60%. The carrier begins withdrawing from the theater to meet a replacement oiler in safer waters. Every nautical mile it withdraws, the combat radius of its air wing shrinks by the same amount. Day 7 and beyond. The carrier is no longer a strike asset. It is, functionally, a mobile helicopter pad moving away from the fight. CENTCOM has no immediate replacement carrier on station. The carrier did not sink, not even close. The Aegis system performed exactly as designed. Every cruise missile was intercepted. Most of the drones were destroyed. The defense worked. But the carrier stopped being a carrier for 72 hours. No one was killed. No ship was sunk. No billion-dollar missile scored a direct hit. And yet the most powerful naval strike group on the planet went quiet for 3 days, because one $20,000 drone reached the one ship that could not shoot back. That is what logistics warfare looks like, and the math behind it is worse than you think. The greatest engineering achievement in naval history, the nuclear reactor, created the greatest vulnerability. A carrier that never runs out of power but cannot fuel its own aircraft. 5 layers of defense that can stop almost anything, built to protect the warship, not the ship that feeds it. And a defense that intercepted 11 out of 12 threats, but the 12th was enough to ground the most powerful strike group on the planet. A fortress that needs to eat every 3 days, and the kitchen has no lock on the door. The cost comparison is the part that keeps war planners awake at night. To attack a carrier directly, you need to solve 3 nearly impossible problems simultaneously. Find it, target it, and saturate its defenses. The cost runs into hundreds of millions of dollars. To disrupt a single UNREP, you need 1 drone to get through. The cost is $20,000. That is not a gap you can close with more interceptors. That is a gap in the architecture itself. If you made it this far, you now understand carrier logistics better than most people who talk about it online. If that matters to you, share this video with someone who still thinks a carrier is invincible. And type proud in the comments so we know you stayed for the physics. This is a hypothetical. USNS Henry J. Kaiser completed its transfers during Operation Epic Fury. The fuel flowed, the sorties continued, CVN-72 stayed on station. But the physics we walk through today are not hypothetical. The 3 to 7 day fuel window is real. The unarmed oiler is real. The protection gap between what the carrier receives and what its supply line receives is a permanent feature of how carrier aviation works. The United States Navy has spent decades and hundreds of billions of dollars making the carrier nearly impossible to sink, and they succeeded. But a carrier that cannot fly its aircraft is not a carrier. It is a 100,000-ton island. So the question Navy Decoded leaves with you is this. In a world where a $20,000 drone aimed at the right target can ground a $13 billion carrier for a week, are we protecting the right things? Navy Decoded, engineering the physics you were not taught.